touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me.
I'm hiding of you, so lonely. I'm hiding of you, so lonely.
Touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me.
You're putting what you're calling the alt-left and white supremacists on the same moral plane.
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
It's on both sides, sir. You said there was hatred, there was violence on both sides.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported
you
it,
guys knew I had to do this,
you
right?
would say.
I totally had to do this.
Neo-Nazis started this. They showed up in Charlottesville
Excuse me.
to protest.
Excuse me. They didn't put themselves down as you, and you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
You know I had to play that, right? You know I absolutely had to play that. Why is this? What in the world? Get out of here. There we go. All right. We are back for another episode of ROMA Nation. I'm AK, your favorite guy, and tonight, left-wing or right-wing violence. You know, what's the truth? What are the numbers? What do the numbers say? In the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk and many other violent things happening in this country, there's a rise of vigilantes. Do you think? I don't know. I hope we don't have to find out. But actually, you know what? Let's do find out as ROMA Nation starts now.
I'm hiding all you so lonely. I'm hiding all you so lonely.
Well, welcome to another episode of ROMA Nation. Scrap's not in this week. He's out of town, but he will definitely be back next week. This is going to be a two-part series. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because there's been a lot of debate going on this week about, who's committing the most violence? Why are people getting shot and killed? And this is actually a very good question because obviously, this happens in our country a lot, right? And the motives behind all of this, they're becoming slimmer and slimmer. Right, it's becoming much more difficult to figure out, like, why does this type of violence have to happen? Right, and the thing is, I'm not just going to stick it onto one side. I'm going to pull up a bunch of information that some of you probably have not seen yet. Okay, and what's really important is that you go to riseofmiddleamerica.com. That's right. Check out our lineup of podcasts from history to news, pop culture, and true crime. We have a show for all your needs. We also got a Discord where all the magic for ROMA Nation happens. If you want to be a podcast host, producer, researcher, or writer for us, this is the only place where you can be a part of the fastest growing community on Rumble, on YouTube, on X, on Discord, you name it. At the top of the page are the links to our socials. At the bottom is our merch site where you can get all the latest Roma fashion right over here. And if you want to support us, we've got a PayPal link down at the bottom, which we're going to have a couple more links here for different people. We're looking into getting crypto. We're looking into getting Cash App and a bunch of other ones. They should be down here pretty soon. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification button so you don't miss a moment of the action. So left-wing versus right-wing violence. This is going to be this versus that. All right. Welcome to this versus that. Left versus right. Domestic extremism. Part 1 of 2. All right. So we're going to start off with CSIS here. Let me change my screen. There we go. All right. So tonight we're going to go into a dangerous territory because political violence in America in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination has shocked everyone. And the conversation has to be reignited. Who is really driving the domestic terrorism in this country? Is it the left or is it the right? For the past decade, we've been told conflicting stories. The mainstream media points one way, independent researchers point another way, but we're going to break this down question by question. See, here's the thing. The government wants you to believe one side is the only threat, but when you pull back the curtain, you realize violence is being tolerated, right? Even encouraged in certain circles, depending on who's doing it. That's the real danger. It's not just who's throwing the punches, it's who's letting them throw without consequence. Now remember that. All right. And that's why we're digging into this tonight, because if we don't get honest about where this violence is coming from and why, we're just pawns in a much bigger game. So let's start off with the first question. Who is committing more violence? Is it the left or is it the right? So from the CSIS, escalating terrorism problem in the United States. The United States faces a growing terrorism problem that will likely worsen over the next year based on a CSIS data set of terrorist incidents. The most significant threat likely comes from white supremacists, although anarchists and religious extremists inspired by the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda could be presented as potential threat as well. Over the rest of 2020, the terrorist threat in the United States will likely rise based on several factors, including the November 2020 presidential election. This kind of seems like it's one-sided, but let's continue down, and you'll see exactly what we're talking about here, because there's a couple of things we're going to go over. This woman right here, Katrina Doxey, you're going to see her here in a minute in the video that I have. On June 3rd, 2020, federal authorities arrested 3 individuals allegedly associated with the Boogaloo movement, a loosely organized group of extremists preparing for a civil war, for conspiring to cause violence in Las Vegas and possessing an improvised incendiary device. Less than a week later, law enforcement officials near Richmond, Virginia, arrested Harry H. Rogers, a member of the KKK, for driving a vehicle into peaceful protesters. Around the same time, members of Brooklyn anarchist group urged his supporters to conduct rebellion against the government. Extremists from all sides flooded social media with disinformation, conspiracy theories, and incitements of violence in response to the protests following the death of George Floyd, swamping Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and other platforms. So, in the long run, most reputable incident fatality databases show that far-right actors are responsible for more deadly violence in the U.S. with like deaths and plots than the far left. But if you take a snapshot to 2025, the new CSIS analysis finds that the left wing attacks and plots outnumber the right wing for the first time in 30 years. Now, they say that these are still low absolute numbers, but we're going to find out. So let me get this up. There we go. Let's check it out.
We are coming out with a new report with new data on domestic terrorism in the United States. It's called Push to Extremes, and this is our update of a data set of over 1,000 cases of domestic terrorist attacks in the United States that goes back to the early 1990s. What's new about this report is it includes 2021 data, which has not been published yet, that CSIS has put together, and we've now added the analysis to it.
In support of our research on domestic terrorism, CSIS has compiled a data set of over 1,000 terrorist attacks and plots in the United States between 1994 and 2021. This includes information on both the incidents themselves as well as the perpetrators, ideology, location of the incident, weapons used, and targets. The threat from domestic terrorism in the United States remains high. 2020 saw the largest number of attacks and plots in the United States since 1994, though it was a slight decrease from 110 incidents in 2020 to 77 in 2021, still came in second after 2020, with a historically high number of attacks and plots. One of the newest trends that we've noticed is the growing number of domestic terrorist attacks and plots that occur at demonstrations, whether that's targeting protesters, actions committed by protesters, or attacks just simply timed to occur at the same time as demonstrations. In 2019, only 2% of domestic terrorist attacks and plots took place at demonstrations. That number rose to 47% in 2020 and 53% in 2021. That means that more than half of the terrorist attacks and plots in 2021 were occurring in the context of demonstrations. This increase has led to what we in the political science field call a security dilemma happening in American cities, where attempts by both sides to increase their own security is perceived as a threat by the other, leading to broader escalation and violence between differing ideological actors.
There are a couple of things that I think are important policy conclusions that come out of this. One is that there still is a paucity of publicly available data from the U.S. government on trends in domestic terrorism. The vast amount of data is coming from outside of the government. It would be extremely helpful if the government were able to provide information to the American public on types of attacks and plots and targets in order to give a sense of the gravity of the situation.
Okay, so I think that's a good place to stop. So this video obviously was from 3 years ago, and the reason why I'm doing this is because it kind of stopped at January 6th, and I want to kind of get an idea of what happened before then. All right, and what people were thinking at that time. Because we look at things like they just showed Portland, they perceived to be, left wing violence that was happening there. They took over 6 city blocks. No, I'm sorry, that wasn't Portland. That was in Seattle. They took over an entire block. I mean, I think somebody succumbed to their injuries while they were there, and it was very difficult for law enforcement to get in. And a lot of this has to do with the leadership and the laws that were put in place. But then, of course, you have the great old January 6th, right? Where we did a 3-part episode on this. We even talked to a couple of the J6ers after the 4-year anniversary when they were all released. You guys can go back and watch those episodes and see what we're talking about there. But it's clear in what direction that the CSIS was going back then, right? But in order to understand like how they come up with this, what is the definition of a terrorist attack, right? A domestic terrorist attack. So this is a domestic terrorist attack from Google is a violent criminal act committed by individuals or groups within a nation to further ideological goals, often to intimidate or coerce the civilian population or influence government policies. These actions are not directed or controlled by foreign entities. The motivations can be political, religious, racial, social, or environmental, and the attacks occur within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States. So, what is this rising threat of domestic terrorism? What does the data tell us? Well, let's find out. Again, from CSIS. The issue, the number of domestic terror attacks and plots against government targets motivated by partisan political beliefs in the past 5 years has nearly tripled the number in such incidents in the previous 25 years combined. According to the new CSIS analysis of 30 years of domestic terrorism data in the United States, this includes attacks and plots against elected officials, political candidates, political party officials, and political workers from terrorists with opposing political views. This rising threat warrants continued efforts to increase protective security measures of government targets, strengthen responsive plans in the event of a successful attack, and counter the spread of disinformation, conspiracy theories, and violent rhetoric that motivated many attackers. All right, so let me see. It's down here in Figure 1. Targets of domestic attacks and plots. This is from January 2020 to April of 2024. As you can see, these are the numbers. Government, military, and law enforcement. There's been 50 attacks on them. Private individuals, 38. Religious institutions, 19. Demonstrators, 13. Abortion clinics, 12. Transportation infrastructure, 7. Pro-life centers, 6. Other, 6. Businesses, 5. And educational institutions, 1. I kind of want to know, like, I look at educational institutions. Do they consider the school shootings the same way? Or do they have another category for that? Because I don't see it here. Because there were definitely more than one. All right. And then this is Figure 2, domestic terrorist attacks on plots against government, law enforcement, and military targets. As you can see, obviously the military much larger. Now, I'm not exactly sure. Is it domestic? Yeah, it says domestic here, domestic terrorists. So a lot of things happening on military bases. I know that just a couple days ago, we had one here on the Naval Academy about 25 minutes from where I am. Now, I'm not exactly sure. There's not enough information on that, on what happened there. But I'm pretty sure that the FBI and the military are going to figure it out from there. This is Figure 3, plots against government targets. All right. And as you can see, in 94 and 95 is where it kind of peaked out. If you guys know, there was the infamous truck bombing, World Trade Center. You had Timothy McVeigh with the Oklahoma City bombing. I mean, there was a lot of stuff happening in 94, 95. Those 2 years were wild. O.J. Simpson, you name it. Then it tapered off. And then, of course, in 01, I don't know if 9/11 is considered, I don't know if it's considered in here as a domestic terrorist attack because it was foreigners that did that, or else this number would have been astronomically high, right? So, and then figure 4, plots against the government targets as a percentage of all domestic terrorist attacks and plots from 94 to 2024. So, of course, again, here's 9/11. And, of course, in 2004, had a little peak in 2011. But I'm guessing this is because those are close to election years. All right. But, again, we're talking about extremism, right? So what is the definition of extremism? It's the quality of the state of being extreme or the advocacy of extreme measures or views. The term is primarily used as a political or religious sense to refer to an ideology that is considered by the speaker or some implied shared social census to be a far outside the mainstream attitudes of society. It can also be used in an economic text. The term may be used to pejoratively by opposing groups, but it's also used as academic and journalistic circles in a purely descriptive and non-condemning sense. I beg to differ. Extremist views are typically contrasted with those of moderates. Political agendas. Wait, what? Extremist views are typically contrast. I'm sorry. I read that word wrong. Contrasted with those of moderates. Political agendas perceived as extremist often include those from the far left politics or far right politics, as well as radicalism, reactionism, chauvinism, fundamentalism, and fanaticism. Researchers specific on social media activities have shown that groups from different sides of the left-right political axis, or those that consist of incumbent party and opposition party, are further apart in terms of ideology, with the ideological distance strongly correlated with an extremism score. I mean, what I want to know is what metric determines like non-ideological criminal activity, right? Because when you look at the ADL and what they explain what extremism is, it's like every year individuals with ties to different extreme causes and movements kill people in the United States. The ADL Center of Extremism, or COE, tracks these murders. Extremism regularly committed murders in the service of their ideology to further a group or gang that may belong or even while engaging in traditional or non-ideological criminal activities. And this is why I asked this question. What determines what is a non-ideological criminal activity? How are they added? Right? How do you determine what is and what isn't? Is it all of them? Is it none of them? Is it a couple of them? Is there certain criteria? You know, and then the second question is, who gets to decide when it's added? It says here, Hardy Remarks says, according to Gun Violence Archive, there have been over 308 mass shootings, 4 more victims in the U.S. this year. I should do an episode on different terminology, but I got to figure out how to do that. But 308 mass shootings, because I know that mass shooting wasn't a statistic until as of maybe 20 years ago, 20, 30 years ago. So, and I think the definition has changed a couple times, but we'll see. All right. So the ADL want to go into, let me see, I got to find it. So the extremist-related killings in 2024 decreased for third year in a row. So they're saying it's 36, 28, 2013. Gotcha. And then there was one other thing I wanted to show here. So we're exploring all the numbers, right? So domestic extremist-related killings in the U.S. by perpetrator in affiliation in 2024. So it's saying that by far the white supremacy was 62%. Anti-government extremism, sovereign citizens was 23%, and anti-government extremists, other, is 15%. Domestic extremist-related killings in the U.S. by perpetrator affiliation, right-wing extremists are responsible for the great majority of extremist-related murders over the last decade. So it says what? Left-wing extremism, including anarchists and black nationalists, 4%. So this is why I said, what metrics that determine the non-ideological, because the issue here is that they can add in and subtract what they want and do it at any point in time. And then once it's published, how are you going to figure that out? Because I looked all up and down this page for the sources and I couldn't find them. All right. Let's see. We got the killings. Let's see. Sovereign looks. Let's see if I could find the. Oh, here we go. Extremist murders in 2024, the incident. So he's got the Concord, New Hampshire. Everybody remember that. Jesse James. Levittown, Pennsylvania, January 30th, 2024. Shot his father and then decapitated him. But most importantly, it's saying that he had, based on white supremacist prison gang. This one is ideology of the kind. One was charged first-degree murder, 2 counts of terrorism. Let's see. Resist the citizen's arrest. Livingston, Texas. Don Stephen McDougal. Let's see. Said he had 2 swastikas. You see where I'm going with this, right? So a lot of the media tends to lean in one direction. So that's why you have these numbers. So let's move on to the Washington Examiner. And let's talk about it in a different light.
Donald Trump's term as president will over, and he will somewhat fade out of, the headlines. I think that will take some steam, some pressure off the political environment. But I don't think you're going to have like a turning point that's really going to change this trajectory.
Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here with commentary editor Con Carroll. And Con, obviously after the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk this past week, in this immediate aftermath, we've seen a lot of calls for unity, for coming together from political leaders, especially Democrats. But the Washington Examiner wrote an editorial that this is not exactly a moment to shy away from the role that the left specifically has played in this.
Right. I don't think you can look at what happened to Charlie Kirk here as an isolated incident, and I don't think you can both sides it. I think this is clearly a larger established pattern of violence by the left that, unfortunately, Charlie Kirk's assassination is the latest evidence of. Just look at the President of the United States. He had not one but 2 assassination attempts on the president. Then you had the healthcare executive killed in New York City by Luigi Mangione. This is a violent killing that the left largely celebrated. You had late night talk shows hosts go and make jokes about this. You had Elizabeth Warren saying, maybe he's got enough point, right? This is not an outright combination of an assassination in broad daylight. But the violence goes on. You have the burning of Teslas to protest Elon Musk. You have the firebombing of a pro-Israel demonstration in Boulder, Colorado. You have the assassination attempt. You have a 10-person conspiracy to shoot and try to kill ICE agents in Texas. These are all examples of left-wing violence targeting conservative movement, conservative areas, and it comes after language particularly among Democrats that just constantly demonizes Republicans and Republican officials.
You already have calls from some of the media, from Democrats, for President Donald Trump to be the one to de-escalate and to lower the temperature, right? How do you sort of square those calls for the right?
By the way, Musk was a part of the left. Just wanted to say that.
Which is, as you have pointed out, largely the victims of this pattern of violence, to de-escalate when, Donald Trump and the right now have this brief hold on power that might not last more than a year. They only have a brief window to do something to combat this. So how do you square the tension between the calls to de-escalate with perhaps the need for the right to do the opposite.
Well, I just think Democrats need to get a grip on reality. Okay, you have Vice President Kamala Harris, while campaigning, actually called Trump, a fascist, right? Tim Walz, same thing. You have Chuck Schumer saying the Supreme Court's going to reap the whirlwind, right? You have so many actual Democratic office holders. Gavin Newsom has called them fascist. Pritzker has called them fascist, right?
Does anybody know the actual definition of a fascist? No, I genuinely want to know, because I've just heard this word being thrown, white supremacist, fascist. In the reality is, no one that was born in America, that's lived their entire lives in America, has ever really lived under a fascist regime. I mean, there's been other extremes. Like, I understand there's, slavery and Jim Crow and like all this other stuff, but from the top down, right? So what is that definition? So I'm going to share it right here. All right, a fascist is a follower of a political ideology known as fascism, which is characterized by a dictatorial leader, extreme nationalism, and the forcible suppression of opposition. The term comes from the Italian fascio, meaning to bundle or group, and was first used by Benito Mussolini, the fascist dictator of Italy. All right, so let's go by this action. This is the one and only Google, right? They tell you to Google stuff, so I'm Googling it. Now, let's go by this definition. All right. Is Trump a dictatorial leader? I mean, if you want to have it pertaining to like his business or whatnot, okay, I guess that's what it is. Extreme nationalism. All right. So this one is going to be a little tricky, right? Because he is definitely about make America great again. He thinks that, things should come back to America. He thinks that America should have, America should be in a much better position on the global stage. So, I mean, I guess that can go either way, right? And then forcible suppression of. All right. So it has to be all three of these things. Remember that. Is Trump forcibly suppressing his opposition? And what does that look like? Like, give me an example of what that looks like. Has he gone after governors? Has he gone after congressional members? Has he gone after Supreme Court justices? Because I mean, we can go back not too far ago, maybe even a year ago, where, I mean, I wouldn't say that Biden was a dictatorial leader. They definitely didn't have any nationalism traits, because I don't even think he knew where he was. But the forcible suppression of opposition, I mean, that was running rampant. And we're starting to figure those things out. Yes, Taylor.
Real quick, thank you, Funkmaster. 5 memberships.
You were the man, Funkmaster. How you doing? How are you doing? That is the ROMA Nation #1 fan talking about. So, thank you very much. Yeah, so by definition, both Biden and Trump are not fascists. All right. Even though we can say that there's a lot of people on the right that say that Biden was doing so, but I also don't think that he really knew what was going on around him. Right. So we have to be fair here. and know that he wasn't even supposed to be president. I mean, he ran against Trump because he wanted to make sure he didn't get back into office. And I mean, if you want to talk about what happened in 2020, I mean, that's a completely different episode. We've already done that. So we're just going to move forward. Well, let's go ahead and continue.
Who their only crime is supporting Donald Trump and enforcing our nation's immigration holders. Gavin Newsom has called them fascist. Pritzker has called them fascist, right? If you keep calling Republicans who their only crime is supporting Donald Trump and enforcing our nation's immigration laws, if you call all of those people fascists, then eventually some of your supporters are going to do what people should do with fascists, which is fight back, right? So the line from Democratic elected officials calling Trump and the Republican movement fascists to people taking up arms and then using violence to combat fascists, to me that's just a straight line.
I was talking with our mutual friend Emily Jashinsky last night, and she said something that has kind of stuck with me. She said she always thought the name Turning Point, which was Charlie Kirk's organization, was kind of hokey. And now she says she believes it's providential because his murder could well be a turning point for this country. But like turning to what? What comes next,
Yeah, I mean, I'm scared because I don't see a world where, it would be great. It would be great if after this tragedy, Democrats, came to reality and said, look, we oppose what the Republicans are doing in a lot of areas, but Trump is not actually Hitler. The Republican Party are not actually Nazis. We disagree with them, and we can, like Charlie Kirk, go and debate them and talk to them and treat them like human beings. But we really should stop talking about war and fire with fire and trying to demonize them in that way. That would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, I can honestly say that even from the right, like, that needs to stop as well. Because the fighting fire with fire is what's creating a lot of these issues. It's creating new issues. And it's clear that there are certain people, certain personalities that are prominent personalities in both parties that are really going after each other. And even with myself, I started going after certain people for certain things. But what I really need to do is, instead of being negative about it, show the truth, show the light, and just leave it at that and let other people decide. Instead of trying to curb the conversation into your favor, because there are going to be certain people that are just not going to agree, and there's nothing you can do about it. Right. So, but anyways, let's look up the extremes of violence. All right. So I chose 3, and I chose them very carefully because I know that this is a hot topic right now. So the first one we're going to go over is political extreme violence. This is the violence that we do know about. I'm doing good, Funk Master. How you doing? You're feeling hungry. That's funny. So let's talk about political extreme violence from the left first. All right. And this is going to go back to, actually, let me see. Here, I'll just go ahead and play the video.
Do want to get you to a story that we have been following here over the last year. Hard to believe, but as we approach 1 year since the attempted assassination on President Trump at a rally in Pennsylvania, new details are being released about the punishments that were handed down to some Secret Service agents. Sunday will mark 1 year since that attempt on Trump's life as he was speaking in Butler. We now know that the Secret Service did suspend 6 agents. Matt Quinn, the agency's deputy director, saying that the suspended agents' punishments ranged from 10 to 42 days of leave without pay or benefits. Several media outlets reporting that when the agents did return, they were placed on restricted duty or roles with less operational responsibility. The names of those suspended agents have not been released at this point. Report, a bipartisan House task force released a 180-page report back in December saying that the attempted assassination was, quote, preventable, referencing pre-existing leadership and training issues that, quote, created an environment where security problems were possible.
Right. And specifically with this, I have a bone to pick with the federal government because we still don't have much information on Crooks, right? His affiliations, how it's so easy for him to get that close to Trump with a gun and fire multiple shots on top of a building that clearly everybody could see. You know, where are the Discord messages? You know, why haven't they been released yet? You know, who was communicating with him that day? Why don't we have this information? I think part of the reason why is because if we let the information out, one side's going to get heated and be like, I told you so. And the other side is going to be like, oh, it's just a hoax. And it's just a hot potato going back and forth, right? But it wasn't just one, it was 2 assassination attempts on his life.
All new here at 5, the man accused of attempting to kill President Trump last year on a Florida golf course has been convicted. Brian Ruth was found guilty on all 5 federal charges. During the jury's reading of the verdict, Ruth appeared to try and stab himself with a pin in the neck. An eyewitness inside the courtroom said authorities were able to stop him. The 59-year-old Ruth represented himself during that trial. He faces the possibility of life in prison and will be sentenced on December 18th.
Right. So, you know, I think the reason why this didn't get as much attention, or, I mean, obviously with Trump is going to get a lot of attention, right? But why I think Charlie Kirk's death resonated a lot more than when it came to Donald Trump is because people were already expecting it, right? They were already expecting that things were going to happen. They were pinpointing. They're like, look, first, you know, they make up some stories, and then I think it was Tucker Carlson, and then they try and silence him. You can't silence him. Then you try to put him in jail. If you can't put him in jail, then, you know, then what's next? You know, we're speeding towards, right? But I also feel that as an elected official, that is a risk that you take. As much as people don't want to hear that, that is a risk that you take regardless of what party you're in. You know that there is a risk that, you know, some random wacko from 500 yards away just happens to have that one time that he gets free. You know, so it was almost to be expected, which is sad. But with Charlie Kirk, in that moment, it wasn't, because he had just started a new college tour. It was his first stop, you know, so you wouldn't expect that right off the bat. You would think, you know, going through a couple of colleges and maybe somebody got pissed off. No, it happened right off the bat. Right. So which is more of a reason why people feel like they think that it was planned. Jeff says, I don't trust the current FBI to do an honest investigation to anything anymore after the Epstein client cover-up. Cash and Dan Bondi, and yes, even Trump lost all credibility with me. I partially agree with you. I think it was Pam Bondi. I think Pam Bondi got too big for her britches and said some things that she shouldn't have said, and should have just kept it neutral, but she didn't. She said that were on her desk, everybody to lead that into interpretation, and which is part of the reason why I think Dan Bongino wanted to jump ship, because he was like, no, because now this is all going to fall on us. And then if you look at you can't hear me? Okay, there we go. But I do feel like I do feel like a lot of that blame goes on the Pam Bondi, and there's a lot of sentiment on both sides as if she should even be the attorney general. I mean, she's done great things. Don't get me wrong, but it a lot of the big things that have come up that the country have been looking for, she's failed on. And the Epstein files is one of them. They definitely fumbled the ball on that. All right, so let's move on to right wing. Let's talk about Melissa Hortman. All right, because I feel like her name didn't come up until after this, right? But I did remember this happening, and I do remember people saying that, oh, this has to be politically motivated. This has to be some kind of crazy right-wing extremist or whatnot. But let's start off with, you know who.
We're here today because an unspeakable tragedy has unfolded in Minnesota. My good friend and colleague, Speaker Melissa Hortman, and her husband Mark were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination.
Person pretending to be police officer. Uh-oh. Hold up. Let me go back there real quick. A person pretending to be a police officer, according to officials, assassinated Democratic state legislator. All right. The assailant also shot and injured both Democratic lawmaker John Hoffman and his wife.
Prayers also go out to State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette, who were each shot multiple times. The Hoffmans are out of surgery at this time and receiving care, and we are cautiously optimistic they will survive this assassination attempt.
Law enforcement officials identify the suspect as 57-year-old named Vance Bolter. The authorities found his vehicle, which contained what described as a manifesto and a target list.
I just remind residents of Brooklyn Park, I know it's been a long time, but those that are in the grid that we gave the alert out to continue to shelter in place. We're also reminding them that if somebody comes to the door and they knock on the door and claiming to be a police officer, please do a couple of things. One, call 911 and confirm that the officer belongs there. If they are a police officer, dispatch will be able to confirm that that person is a police officer. Also, we've informed officers that they are not to approach anybody by themselves. They're to approach in pairs, meaning two officers. So if there's only one officer outside the door, do not answer the door and call 911.
All right. So another thing that was interesting about this case is that he said that it wasn't politically motivated, right? He also said that Kash Patel needs to know what happened. He wasn't specific about it, but he said he needed to know, like, within the next 24 months, there's going to be some issues, right? And I hate the vagueness of that, because it almost makes it, when you're that vague, what ends up happening is all the people that don't believe you are going to be like, yeah, right. No, it was definitely politically motivated. And if you're not going to come out and say it, then we're just going to assume the worst. And that's what happened. Right? So let's see. Criminal. I don't know any criminal that rides around with a manifesto on them, just like how they found the passport of the hijackers on 9/11. Yeah, that one's kind of. Yeah, explain yourselves, U.S. government. I'm just kidding. Don't come after me. All right. So that was political extreme violence. Now let's go into religious extreme violence, and none other than Josh Hawley. Let's go.
Let me just turn to the broader question here of anti-religious, anti-Christian violence. Let me just give you a few stats that I'm sure that you're all too familiar with. Every person of faith in America certainly is. Major report this past year found that there have been over 400 instances of hostility against churches in the United States in the year 2024. Those included arson, bomb threats, shootings, and firearm incidents. Another organizational report found there were 500 attacks on Catholic parishes alone. So that number 415, that's all Christian churches in 2024. Another organization found 500 separate attacks on just Catholic parishes since May of 2020. Of course, we have the Covenant school shooting, the Annunciation school shooting in Minnesota, where 2 children were shot dead as they were praying in a pew.
Right. You know, and with this uptick of shootings, especially targeting Catholics, most were leftist ideology. I mean, I don't really know of any right wingers in the last 10 years. I mean, this is where I'm kind of, that's where my focus is, the last 10 years, right? Some of them have been because of bullying or social circumstances or whatnot. Then, of course, you've got gang related, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about religious extremes, right? And a majority that we've been hearing about have been from a trans ideology, right? And, you know, there's been a lot of talk left, you know, all over the spectrum about, you know, whether the medications or whether, you know, the personalities of these individuals and what drives them to do that. Now, I don't want to just pick on trans, right? Because that's not fair. That's not fair at all. That's why I'm pulling in
just a little. Come on,
just a little. My DEI hire comes to save the day. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. Next, we're going to talk about something that's actually personal to me. All right. And if you guys remember, about 10 years ago, what's up, Biddy? There was a shooting in Orlando, Florida, at the Pulse nightclub.
Salman, the widow of the Orlando nightclub shooter, is currently on trial on federal terrorism charges for her alleged role in the massacre. 49 people were killed when Omar Mateen opened fire in June of 2016. Yesterday, prosecutors showed the jury surveillance video of the shooting as they laid out a timeline. Today, as they try to prove their case, that video was made public. We caution you, it is graphic. Here's Michelle Miller.
Government attorneys said they showed this video to jurors because they believe it is the clearest evidence they have pointing to Noor Salman as providing material support of aiding and abetting her husband in committing a terrorist attack. The edited courtroom video begins by showing Omar Mateen buying a ticket before walking into Pulse as clubgoers are enjoying Last Call. It's just before 2 a.m. Mateen then leaves the building, but returns less than 10 minutes later and almost immediately opens fire into the main part of the club with his semi-automatic rifle. After appearing to fire off several shots, he walks toward the back of the club, firing again, methodically picking off patrons. He appears to shoot some victims once they are already down. At one point, Mateen drops a used clip and reloads. Stalking back and forth between rooms, he continues to fire away and then heads toward the restroom, where people can be seen on cell phone video huddled in fear. At 2:07, roughly 6 minutes after he started shooting, police entered the building with guns drawn.
The reason why this hits personal, I used to live in Orlando. I used to help with some events there at the Pulse nightclub. So I've met the owners once. They were very nice people. I'm pretty sure that they would tell you that it wasn't a gay club. You know, it was a club for everyone. I mean, they had all different types of nights there, you know, but predominantly gay people went to that club. One of my high school friends, his sister, she was the one with the initial video when the shooting happened. Her name was Amanda. And And I remember distinctly because I was going to bed, and I remember I was checking my phone on Facebook, and I saw all these messages like, please get out, please be safe. And I didn't know, I didn't understand what was going on. And then I saw my close friend from high school. His feed came up and said, hey, my sister was there. Can anybody figure out, where she is? Like what happened? And we didn't find out until a couple days later that she didn't make it. So it's even really hard for me to talk about it now, because I knew a lot of people that went to that club. I lived in Orlando for 26 years. It's kind of how I got started with my entertainment. I had my own entertainment business down there. That's fast forward 20 years later, and here I am, right? But this one was, I guess, technically right wing, but it was more Islamic ideology, which is in the I guess in the area of right wing, so to speak. Not necessarily an ideology from America, but from a different country. So Islam is totally right wing, right, guys? Right? You got to make that meme. But either way, what I'm trying to show you guys is that, there is a lot more violence that happens, but it's up to us to decipher if whether it's political, whether it's religious, or whether it's just identity politics gone right or wrong. Okay, so that's my next one in the final, which is identity extreme violence. All right, and we've got 4 different categories here. All right, so we've got MAGA, we've got the Proud Boys, we've got BLM, and we've got Antifa. And we're going to pin them all against each other. All right, so let's start off with MAGA.
I just want to let you know that. You got off and you put paws on somebody, then you feel like a bigger man. You know what I'm saying? It's around. We gotta go in front of Trump Tower. You guys out of Let's go. Street's closed. Let's go. Everyone out.
Black Lives Matter in lowercase. All for it. Black lives do matter. But when you capitalize these letters, it's the organization. The organization is absolutely a Marxist, domestic, terrorist organization.
All right, so that's the debate, right? These people are not out here trying to create discourse. They have an opinion. They have an opinion, and they're being attacked for that opinion. It's clear that this area is blocked off. I'm not exactly sure if they're supposed to be there or not. If they have a right to be there, then what happened here is wrong. If they don't have a right to be there, then we're having a different discussion, right? But boy, oh boy, let's talk about the other side of the right, the Proud Boys. Here we go.
you. God bless.
I'm going to stop it right there for just a second. They're saying our streets, right? They're technically not your streets. They're everybody's streets. So it's almost as if like they're provoking, right? And I'm showing, if you see what I'm doing here, if you saw the last video, these guys were not provoking. They had an opinion that they wanted to express, and they were attacked for that opinion. You can have an opinion to say that this is your streets on this video, but it's not exactly your streets. Other demonstrators have a right to come in. Now, whether you think that Antifa has a right, I mean, now they probably don't, but this is the difference. Uh-oh. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you?
These ass streets, nigga, all streets. These ass streets. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Come on.
Hey, we got 5 more memberships. Thank you, Funkmaster.
Thank you very much, my friend. Oh my God, I got to get you on this show at some point. I definitely will. Shoot me a message. We'll get you on, and we'll have a little bit of banter. Let me know.
Yes, you heard that, guys. You can buy your way onto ROMA Nation. Just send us money.
You're funny. No, I was going to say, but throwing stuff at demonstrators is not a good idea. You guys can clearly see which way this video is leading. And you see that? This is the difference, all right? Peaceful demonstration, provocative demonstration. All right. I'm going to call it out. I'm going to call a spade a spade. Okay. Now, let's move on to BLM.
The crowd continues to plead, but this time watch.
Get off him now!
As the officer reaches for what appears to be a can of pepper spray.
What the He got mace. He got mace.
When we slow down the video, you can see the person filming backs up as the officer shakes the can of pepper spray. At this point, nearly 5 minutes in, Floyd's eyes are closed, and the crowd's pleas grow louder. Including this woman, who identifies herself as a Minneapolis firefighter. demanding that an officer check Floyd's pulse.
She's not responsive right now, bro.
The 3rd Police Precinct
to these protests in South Minneapolis.
And Rich Reeve are on the ground there. They have fire right now in St. Paul. Also, the most.
You see some of the water bottles being thrown at law enforcement, and they began using some of the flashbangs. And
a bit to the left, you will see a lot of National Guardsmen.
So if you look at this, like, obviously this looks bad. And back then it looked really, really bad, right? We didn't have all the information, but you could see why, it shook the country to the core, right? Because there were protests everywhere about this. It was COVID. People lost their jobs. They had nothing better to do. So, a lot of things got exacerbated. But there's always been this history between, the police, the feds, and the African-American community, where at this point they saw this video and they were like, okay, the gloves are off, right? We're done being nice. We're done, being, I wouldn't say resisting, but like we're done complying at this point. The problem with that is when that happens, then you get things like this.
Copy that. Here we go. All right, this is getting serious. Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. Holy Christmas. Oh boy. Oh boy. We've got two CHP cruisers. What is going on, guys?
So on one side, you can see why there isn't trust within the BLM community and police officers. But then when you turn around and you see that, then everybody else is looking and going, what are you guys doing? Do you not have fathers at home? That's the reaction. Because during George Floyd, nobody knew who George Floyd was all the way up until that point. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been known, but I don't think George Floyd wanted to be known. It's just that situation thrusted him into the political spotlight. But during Trump and Charlie Kirk, you didn't see stuff like this. Right? So, tomato, however you want to say it. But there also needs to be a change in culture as well. So where does that leave us? We've gone through the numbers, we've gone through the incidents, there's got to be some funding pipeline somewhere. It's still all a mess. But if you're keeping score, the long game shows more deadly attacks from the right. But in 2025, for the first time in a long time, the data says that the left has racked up more incidents, and by a lot. Right? And it's not in body counts, but in sheer attempts and plots. Talk to some of the right-wing influencers, right? And how they talk about, I think it was Crowder. Crowder talked about, dude, how we had to stop going and sitting, on the street corner trying to debate people because we were getting hit. People were throwing stuff at us. They were trying to steal stuff, knocking over our tables, trying to steal our hats off of our head, trying to provoke stuff. But except for that one person that gets through, but you don't see all the other ones that go through, right? Because they don't talk about it, because they don't want you to know where the weak spots are. They have to be able to fill those weak spots. But it just doesn't fit the neat story that you get from the headlines. And let's be real. The government, the media, even the think tanks, right? They all pick and choose what the spotlight. They cherry pick. Right-wing militias and shooters make the evening news. Left-wing arson, assaults, and attacks, churches, pregnancy centers. Some of those barely get a segment, or at least that's what they say. But I just pulled up a bunch of different videos that you can find online. And when the money trail runs through the bail funds, the NGOs, a crowded surf site, suddenly it's all activism, they say on the left. When you flip the script, it's a terrorism finance case, double standards everywhere, whatever you want to call it. But at the heart of the issue, violence is violence, right? The narrative depends on who benefits. And think about it. In the 60s, they had bombings, they had assassinations from both sides. In the 70s, you saw groups like Weather Underground and the KKK. Today, the tools are a lot different, especially with social media, radicalization, crowdfunding, mass mobilization. But the incentives are the same. Keep America divided. Keep the outrage boiling. Keep the temperature up. So we're going to pause here this week and look at the who, the when, and the why for next week in part 2, because that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about where's all this money coming from? Who's funding Antifa? Who's funding the Proud Boys? Who's pushing all of these narratives? We're going to go deeper into playbooks, prosecutions, and whether the crackdowns that we're seeing today is about public safety or is about consolidating power. Because history tells us once you label half the country as terrorists, the republic doesn't stand the same. But you know what does? My website, Rise of Middle America. Make sure you go check it out. We got our socials up at the top. We got all of our ugly faces here and our caricatures down here in the middle. Got all of our previous episodes. We got everything here, man. Sports show was great. We had Salty on from Salty and Savage Show doing some picks for us. And we were going through the NFL, the MLB, all kinds of stuff. All right. You want to show your support? Go here to ROMA Nation merch. Or you can go down to the bottom of the page. We can make a monetary contribution through PayPal to help us keep the lights on. Keep bringing you great content like this. The bigger we get, the better our content's going to be, and the more that we can bring out to Middle America. All right. With that being said, I'm AK, your favorite guy. You can find me on X at @TheRealRoma_AK. If you don't know my pretty face, it's right there. And definitely let us know. If you have any subjects that you want to talk about, join the Discord through there. Come talk to me. I'm on there every single day. All right? Let's create something together. Anyways, like I said, you have a great night, and we will see you next week.
Good night, guys. Bye.